Welcome to Literary Lark, the show that examines trends in indie publishing, fiction, and anything related to books. Hello and welcome to Literary Lark. I'm your host, Daniel Adorno, and this is the second episode of the show. I thank you all for tuning in to the show. Recently, I was able to get the show onto iTunes, so if you wish to listen to this on your iPod or iPad or whatever devices you'd like, then head over to iTunes and you can do that if you wish. So today, I want to discuss these first steps to publishing your book. Basically, this is going to be a series of podcasts looking at the process of getting your book written and published, and even some marketing tidbits that I've learned in my journey as an author. And I think they'll be useful to you, whatever stage you're at, whether you're still in the frustrated writer stage wishing to get a book out, or if you have a book and it's in that manuscript stage and you want to publish it. So there are lots of benefits to listening to this podcast and to this series. The series title is First Steps to Publishing Your Book. So this is the first part of that. So with this show, I want to specifically look at writing your book. So if you are a writer, or maybe you've thought about writing and the idea appeals to you very much, but never got around to it, this would be the show that will introduce you to some ways to get that going, get the ball rolling. Or maybe you have written some short stories or poems, but you've always wanted to look ahead to something bigger and grander like a book. Then, again, this is the place to be. So, just to give you a few stats that I looked up on writing, and these may be questionable. I looked into the sources as best as I could, but one stat that I looked at was about people who want to write a book in America. The statistic is 81% of Americans want to write books, which is a staggering statistic, but the counter to that is that 97% of people that start a book do not finish. So there's a bunch of people that want to write books. Some start, but the majority do not finish. And this might describe you. You might be in this spot where you've always wanted to look at looking at being an author, but that has never just materialized for you. And I hope that I can provide some encouragement for you to do that, to become an author, to get a book out there and get it completed. So one of my things that I want to discuss today is why I believe everyone should write a book. Now, there are lots of books out there, especially in the self-publishing market. Some are better than others, arguably. Some have better quality, some are not so good. There's a lot of stinkers out there on Amazon and Smashwords and all that. But I still believe that it's important for people to write a book, especially if you have that as a desire or a goal in your life. You should write a book. And my reasons are that writing a book helps to create discipline. As a writer, it will create lots of discipline. And we'll get into that a little more as the show goes on. But beyond creating discipline, it's also a way to understand the writing process, get some behaviors and habits in your own life that will allow you to be successful as a writer. Because writing a book is it's a long race. There's a lot going into it, and it could be compared to something like running a marathon where you have to train and really be disciplined and have all the tools available to get it done. But I think everyone should take on that endeavor because it will, at the end of it, not only is it just this great accomplishment and there's all the accolades, not really, there's not a ton of accolades, but there is the satisfaction of knowing that you started this thing, you got it done, and saw it to the end, and it's an amazing feeling, and people tend to look at you differently after you've written a book, and it shouldn't only be because of that. You shouldn't just do it because you want people to have a different opinion of you, but you should do it if it's on your bucket list, and if you are looking and pursuing beyond just writing small pieces of fiction or poems or wherever you're at in your writing journey. So with that, let's get into some methods to writing a book, to starting a book. So if you are at the stage right now where you've maybe written some short stories, and I'm specifically going to be talking to fiction writers. For those of you that write nonfiction, some of these things will still apply, but some may not. So hopefully you can still get something out of it. That is my goal, is to have every writer get something out of it. But if you don't, obviously leave me some feedback about it. And because I'm just a fiction writer. So the nonfiction piece is a little different. But for those of you that are mainly genre fiction writers and have written short stories, but now you're looking into transitioning to writing a book, some of the methods that have worked for me, even some little tips, have been truly beneficial. And one of the things that I would encourage you to do if you are starting this book writing process is to look up word counts for the genre you're writing in. There are different word counts for different genres. For my genre of fantasy, the word count tends to be pretty high. If you look at any works like Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, they tend to be pretty thick books, pretty much in the 100,000 to 200,000 word count range. So it's a lot of writing, and it's definitely tough. My own book is just shy of the $100,000 mark. That would be a very expensive book. The 100,000 word mark. It's about 84,000 words. And the reason I chose to go below the average is because at the time I wrote the book, I was seeking the traditional publishing path. And for fantasy, most literary agents and publishers want to have a book that is in that $80,000 to $100,000 range if it's fantasy. So I kind of kept it light and didn't make a push for a huge word count so that I wouldn't scare off literary agents or publishers when I submitted it. Now, that being said, if you're more leaning towards the independent publishing path, and we'll get into this more in the series in later podcast episodes, but if you're looking at the independent publishing path, this isn't going to be as big of a deal. However, I do encourage you to still look up word counts if you're looking at self-publishing, because readers have a standard, whether they know it or not, of length when it comes to the genre they like. So if you're a romance writer and you decide you're going to put out a 250,000 word romance on the shelves, it's very likely that you're not going to get that market, those readers, because romance novels are not typically that long, at least from what I've seen. Not being a romance reader myself, but it seems like they're lighter than a fantasy book. And then other books such as young adult, they tend to be kind of mid-range. You're looking at 70 to 80,000 words. So there are exceptions to the rule, of course, but look up the word counts for your genre and make a note of that, because that can be your target for how many words your book needs to be, and it helps you solidify where you want to go, because you might just have 10,000 words and you're unsure of how long this book should be, and having that end goal in mind will really make the journey a lot easier, because then you can just kind of have these milestones along the way, with each 10,000 words or 20,000 words or whatever it may be. So look up the word counts for your genre when you're starting out with the book writing. Second, I would say set a writing goal each day. It's very important that you plan for this, because it's going to be, like I said, if you're running a marathon, you need to train, you need to be disciplined. And I think the same applies for writing a book. You need to have a goal each day, whether today is a writing day or it's not a writing day. You should plan that out too, so you don't get discouraged if there's a day, and don't make your writing goals unrealistic. Each of you knows your schedule the best. You know what times of day are the most busy for you, or if you work full time, or if you're a student, or whatever it may be. You know when the best times in the day are to write based on your schedule. So make it a realistic goal, make it specific, to the words you want. One of the places that I think is very helpful in this area is the NaNoWriMo website. That's NaNoWriMo. Sorry, let's spell that again one more time. NaNoWriMo.org. NaNoWriMo, it stands for National Novel Writing Month. Every November, this organization comes together, brings would-be authors together to finish a book in 30 days. It's an aggressive goal. I've partaken in that annual November writing challenge, and it's very rewarding. You are tasked with writing about 1,700 words a day, give or take, and it's challenging. It really pushes you to the limit to do that 30 days in a row. And if you slack off on a few days, then you have to make that up the next day you write. So it's tough, but it keeps you motivated. So that might be something to look into. Maybe you as you're plotting what your book's about, looking at researching things and what character names and things like that. Some of that stuff takes a little longer than you expect. You have a long time till November. I believe NaNoWriMo has I think in April, or maybe it's March, you'll have to look on the website, has another opportunity, a month where they, start that writing challenge, and you might want to join. It might be if you're one of those people like me who needs a kick in the pants to get things done, then NaNoWriMo might be for you. You get email updates and encouragement to get to your writing goals. So it's something to look into for sure. But I think what that organization really capitalizes on is this idea that you have a writing goal each day, a word count you need to meet. And whether or not you participate in NaNoWriMo, you should always have something you're striving for. And I think a daily word count is helpful. But if that's too stringent, then perhaps a weekly word count. But I wouldn't go beyond weekly. If you start doing monthly word counts or quarterly word counts, then it's just an invitation to slack off on the writing. And I think that even though there are authors that take a long time to write books, maybe a few years to write a really good book. I don't know how long it took some of the, classic works out there to write their books. I imagine it would have taken longer than a month than what NaNoWriMo is pushing for. But you don't want to let too much time go by between your writing, because you lose motivation, you lose interest, and it becomes very tempting to just put that manuscript aside that you've started. So my advice is set a writing goal each day, make it realistic. And one of the things I do, which may not work for everyone, but it's helpful for me, is that I tend to take 1 hour out of the day, or 30 minutes even. Any little bit is better than nothing, and write early in the morning. I wake up pretty early to go to work, and it's helpful in that time before I go on my commute to just pull out the laptop, start writing, listen to some music that really gets me in that writing mood, and punch out a few hundred words. It's not a lot, but it's something. and it keeps that momentum going that I think is very helpful to anyone that wants to write a book, to get to that goal of getting a book completed. So really take that seriously, to have that goal each day, whatever it looks like for you. But it's very instrumental in getting the book done, because it's a big feat to get a book done. Let's not kid ourselves that in our very fast-paced, busy culture, it's hard to sit down and turn off all the distractions, all the noise, and write. So really take that seriously. On the other side of the coin, don't beat yourself up if you don't get to those word counts. It's not the end of the world if you don't meet your daily word counts, or if you've slacked off a few days, because what ends up happening, and this is very common with writers, at least with me and some other writers I've spoken to, is that you just get kind of in this slump and think, I'm just not a good writer, I'm not disciplined enough, I just can't do this. But you can. You really can. It just takes time. It takes time to develop some of these habits, especially if you've never written a book before, a full-length book. And you need to be consistent and get back on the horse. If you've been lazy for the last few days, get back on the laptop and start cranking out some words, and just keep writing. That's probably the best advice I can give, is keep writing. Even if it's not your best work, even if it's not the full word count you initially made, keep writing, keep going. It will, again, get that momentum that will be very helpful to finish a book. So those are just a few of my methods that have worked for me in getting my first book done, and as I'm working on my next one. Now I want to kind of transition to tools of the trade, things that you should use for writing. If you've never written a book before, you should have something a word processor of some sort. And the most common one is Microsoft Word. I think most PCs either have Word on them, or you've bought Word, or I don't know of anyone that has never used Microsoft Word. If you've been in college or you needed to use it for work, you've come across it in some way or another. I suppose if you own an Apple or a Mac computer, then it's I don't really know. Actually, I'm not an Apple guy, so I don't know what the word processor on there is, but maybe that would be the counterpart that more people are familiar with if you're an Apple person. But for my purposes, Microsoft Word is the go-to word processor on a computer, on a laptop. I'll give you my pros and cons for Microsoft Word. The pros are that it's everywhere. I mean, you can find it. I believe Microsoft has a OneDrive, onedrive.com, allows you to log on and just start typing on their word processor. I think there's a plan that charges you for the amount of gigabytes that you have on their cloud service, but that's a free option if you don't want to pay the hundreds of dollars for Microsoft Word. But again, I think most laptops, PCs have it as part of their programs. So it's good because it's so readily available, and it's pretty easy, straightforward word processor. You just open it up, open a new document, start typing. The cons are that when you're typing something as long as a book, which is a very long document, especially if you're writing a fantasy novel and it's 100,000 words, it's hard to go back and look at some of the things you wrote before. So if you're on chapter 20 of your fantasy novel and you want to go all the way back to chapter 2, that's a lot of scrolling. And sometimes hitting the Control F function and finding a specific word will help, but it's still very tedious, takes a long time to go back, look through that long document in Microsoft Word. But it's also, again, easy to come by Microsoft Word. It's readily available. There's plenty of tips and tricks in that program because of how widespread it is. But for me, I would recommend another program. It's called Scrivener. It's spelled Scrivener, Scrivener. It's probably the best program on the market for writers. It is a word processor like Word, but it's so much more than that. It has just millions of features. If you Google Scrivener, you will see countless tutorials. There are coaches for Scrivener. There is just a lot. And the reason I recommend it is because you not only get the word processor aspect where you can make a document and start writing, but it allows you to actually make divisions in your writing. So if you've got 20 chapters, then it allows you to make these almost like mini documents within a big document with partitions and divisions of your chapters. So you can easily just click back and there's chapter 1 or there's chapter 2. And those divisions don't necessarily have to be chapter length. You can make them as long or as short as you want. They can just be a scene in your story, or half the chapter, whatever you want. There's a lot of customization options. There's a lot that you can look into as far as tutorials. It allows you to convert your document into multiple files, a Word doc file or a text file or rich text file, a PDF, and even ebooks. It can make a Mobi file for a Kindle or an EPUB file for any other device like a Nook or a tablet that would read that. So it's very versatile, and it's only about $40, which is a bargain compared to Microsoft Word, which I believe is in the $300 to $500 range if you bought it straight up. So Scrivener is my recommendation for authors and writers who are looking to write a book, because it just lays things out very nicely. Last tool that I recommend is Ommwriter. It's ommwriter.org is the website. And if you didn't catch any of these resources or links, they will be on the show notes, so don't worry if you didn't catch it or if I misspelled it or got it wrong. So Ommwriter is a very simple application. It's available for Macs and for PC. Generally, the purpose of Ommwriter is that it gets you in that writing mood, gets you in the zone. So when you download Ommwriter, put it on your laptop, open it up, all you get is it totally takes up the entire screen. Everything else goes away. You don't see your Windows bar or anything else. Everything else is completely taken over by Ommwriter, and it plays very soothing music that is supposedly helpful in triggering your creative abilities. I'm not sure how documented or tested that is, but I can tell you this. When I use it, it definitely gets me in a writing mood, and it blocks out all distraction, all visual distraction. It's a very simple editor or a processor that uses simple text. There's no autocorrect. There's no grammar options like in Word, because those things can tend to be distracting. So it's very helpful. It's very soothing almost. It just kind of gets you into the artsy part of writing. And I use it in conjunction with Scrivener. Often what I've been doing with my new book that I'm working on is I'll write a chapter in Ommwriter, get into the writing mood, and really just do an hour of writing on Ommwriter. When I'm done, I'll copy-paste whatever I've written into Scrivener. And Scrivener then becomes more of my strategic or organizational tool for getting the book chapters and everything the way I want it. So, but of course you can just use Scrivener or Word and put on headphones and listen to some soothing music as well. But there's just something about Ommwriter, I can't really explain it, that really gets me in that writing mood, and it might work for you too. So check that out. The link will be on the show notes. So to kind of conclude this episode, I just want to say that writing a book takes discipline. It really is a long haul, a long journey, but with the right habits in place, looking up word counts, setting a goal, not beating yourself up, but just kind of pacing yourself, and really being intentional about what you want to accomplish in this journey will be very helpful. It takes a bit of planning, and a lot of writers don't, at least ones that I speak for myself, don't tend to be planners, don't tend to be organized. They just kind of like the art of writing and just, I just want to be carefree and write this book and not really care about management and organization and all that. But that can sometimes be a recipe for disaster. So look at these tools, observe these methods, research ways that you can kind of have these little tips and tricks of the craft to get a book together and get it organized. And the amount of time that it takes to write the book is up to you. It's really up to your schedule, how much you want to invest in this. You can do it in 30 days, like NaNoWriMo, maybe even less than that if you're just hardcore about it, or it might take you a year. But I think it's important that you examine where you want to be and what your goals are. And if you're really serious about writing a book, go do it. All it takes is just being intentional, making that goal, and getting down to the nitty-gritty of writing. So that's today's episode. First steps to publishing your book, to writing your book. Like I said, I'm on iTunes, Literary Lark. If you like this episode, please give me a review. I'd certainly appreciate it. You can find me at danieladorno.com. That's DanielAdorno.com. I'm also on Facebook under Daniel A. Adorno, and in Twitter, I'm my Twitter name is lucid_ghost. So please check me out there. Give me a shout out if you like the podcast or if you like the blog. And I'll also just give a little plug for The Blade Heir is my fantasy book. It's available on Amazon. So check that out. Thanks so much for listening today.